Anyway, can we bring the Audit and Compliance Committee meeting to order, please? I want to thank everybody for coming, and we want to especially thank Florida A&M University, its Board of Trustees, the chair of its board, who is here with us today, President Ammons, and the staff for hosting our board meeting. For me, it's a privilege because this is my first time to be at the university, and I'm thrilled, excited that I was able to find my way here very quickly once I got all the directions into my car. The universities are growing so much that once you start driving around, it gets to be, it's a little tricky if you don't know what you're doing. All right, prior to approval of the minutes, Mikey, could you call the roll, please?
Certainly. Mr. Dasper was not able to be here. Mr. Edwards? I'm advising the chair that Mr. Martin will be here shortly. Mr. Perez?
Present.
Dr. Zachariah?
Here.
Dr. Solano was on the call, so I don't know where she's gone, but you have a quorum.
Here.
Thank you, and we have other members of the board present.
Okay, is there anyone else on the phone?
Yes, there's Jamie Lewis Keith and Brian Michael from University of Florida.
Welcome. Anyone else?
Say it again, louder.
Anyone else? We want to welcome you. Anyone else? Okay, thank you. Just to note that Lynn Pappas, who is our vice chair, has resigned from the Board of Governors, and I just want to acknowledge her leadership, knowledge, experience. We're really going to miss her. She played a big role in this committee, spent a lot of time before I was even appointed to the board, so her leadership is going to be sorely missed. At the next meeting, I think it will behoove us to elect a vice chair of the audit committee. And to that extent, I would just like to suggest to our members here that we might want to consider John Temple to be vice chair. And the reason I say that is John may be solely the one single member who is totally qualified to serve on an audit committee. With his financial background, with the fact that he was a CFO of a public company and other things. So I'm going to suggest to John that he strongly consider accepting that role. And if anyone else is interested in being vice chair, that's not to exclude anybody, but that would be my suggestion. Are there any comments to that from any of the board members now?
My only question is whether or not that's an election or a chair.
Okay, yeah.
I'd be happy to appoint him if he's interested in doing it.
Okay.
And I think we should check it out.
Yeah, I just want to make sure we haven't elected.
Right,
chairs or
we
vice
had,
chairs.
this is the first time we've even had vice chairs, actually, since I've been on the board, and I believe it's an appointed thing, and I have no objection to that, but I think we should see if he is going to be able to attend the
So
meeting.
I direct those comments to you, Madam Chair.
Absolutely.
Okay?
We'll
And
ask
if-
staff
and-
to make
and
the
if- and
inquiry.
if not John, it would be to have someone else.
Okay, we'll have staff look into his
Okay.
availability.
Mr. Harper, he's back. His back is back. As some of you may or may not know, he had some serious back surgery. It was fun talking with him some days when he was under those pain pills. He agreed with everything I said. It was very interesting. Derry, give us a brief overview of our agenda, if you would.
Yes, sir. First of all, after the approval of the minutes, we will go immediately into our next agenda item, which will be by myself a brief overview of the task force on FAMU operational and finance and control issues, followed after that by a presentation from President Ammons giving the Audit and Compliance Committee an update on the corrective action plan, and as we had discussed at our previous meeting. We then will review and discuss the final draft, that is the staff recommendation, the final draft for the Audit and Compliance Committee charter. And as we noted on the agenda and the agenda change, we will consider the Office of Inspector General Committee charter at a later time prior to our next meeting. Also, we'll have a brief discussion of the Audit and Compliance Committee work plan. We have reformatted that, and of course, in that work plan are many of the activities that will keep us busy for the next several months.
Okay, thank you, Derek. You've all received the minutes. Can I have a motion to accept? Second? Second. All in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Thank you. Derek.
Yes, sir. I want to take you back to March of 2007. A word that is now being used today on January 28, 2009 is crisis. But in March of 2007, that word by any measurement could have been used to describe both the challenge facing the Board of Governors and also the specific challenge facing Florida A&M University. Crisis is sometimes defined as a stage in a sequence of events at which the trend of all future events, for better or for worse, is determined. And a good synonym for the word crisis is turning point. Now, President Ammons is going to present some specific information on how FAMU has turned that crisis into a turning point. But for the members of the Audit and Compliance Committee and new members of the board, the chair asked me to give just a brief overview of the work of the task force on FAMU finance and control issues and how they dealt with that on behalf of the Board of Governors. Now, I've been cautioned to be very brief, and I will be, and I see the Chancellor already looking at me. I do not have a PowerPoint presentation, so I won't have more than 9 or 10 slides to bore you with. However, I do want to emphasize that
You don't need to be brief, you need to be thorough.
I will, sir.
Very, very important for us to
And
make sure
I do
our
believe,
report
sir,
is thorough.
yes, sir. It is important to note that in March of 2007, things were quite a bit different. We are here today gathered at Florida A&M University at a different time. But in March of 2007, among the many challenges facing both the Board of Governors and Florida A&M University was how to restore public trust and credibility in the university and in the board, and to demonstrate accountability to all of those constituencies that we serve, the public, the legislature, the students, faculty, and alumni of this university and all of the universities in the system. The Board of Governors' role was not to fix all of the problems. Instead, the FAMU Board of Trustees and the selection of President Ammons and his staff had that most difficult task. However, we were no less accountable to fulfill our role to demonstrate accountability. Our role was to assist FAMU, not just by oversight, but to demonstrate in an objective and also in an empirical fashion that we could determine that those matters that had come to the attention of the university and to the public at large by way of the Auditor General's series of audits had been dealt with. The Board of Governors could and did accept this responsibility. We did accept the responsibility to be accountable, and we did so by the Board of Governors, specifically Chair Roberts, the Chancellor, Governor Pappas, Chair McDevitt, and many others, appointing the task force on FAMU. I want to point you to the supplemental materials that were included in your packets this morning, and I just wanted to say again thank you to those individuals who served on the task force. They included Lynn Pappas, Leander J. Shaw, that is Chief Justice Leander J. Shaw, who was Vice Chair, Barbara L. Bowes, Judge Michael B. Chavies, T. Willard Fair, the current and then Chair of the FAMU Board of Trustees, C. William Jennings, Jolynn K. Merkel, Governor Ava Parker, and Dr. Edward Pinson. What the task force was faced with, trying not to be too glib about it, is how to demonstrate accountability in a situation where it was not only a changing set of circumstances, but to use now what has become a well-worn term, things changed very quickly. One of the most significant events was that on June 28th of 2007, the Southern Association of Colleges and Schools placed FAMU on probation, primarily based upon some of the results of those audits. However, with the help and the hard work of the members of the task force and with the dedication and support of the internal work group, the board staff, and the chancellor, we came up with an action plan based upon our priority, which was to assist in restoring public trust, and based upon a fairly straightforward approach. That methodology and approach was to validate and verify the corrective action plan so that we could stand with Florida A&M University when those questions were asked about whether these issues had been resolved. We did so. We developed mission, goals, and objectives. We developed a support group, including myself, our internal work group, members from the state university system, and also an outside vendor. I have to note just very briefly that we had other partners in this. Without the collaboration and cooperation of the Auditor General, and definitely without the full-fledged support, cooperation, collaboration of Florida A&M University, President Ammons, the senior staff, and his board of trustees, we could not have been successful. In its final report issued on June 30th, 2008, the task force concluded, and I quote, Florida A&M University has implemented adequate and effective controls that address the vast majority of issues raised by several previous audits conducted by the Florida Auditor General. The task force concluded that of the 72 corrective actions, which had been in place a sufficient period of time to be subject to a systematic, reliable validation and verification process, 92% were operating at a satisfactory level. Those corrective actions in place to address the remaining issues needed additional time to mature and become institutionalized. The task force commended Florida A&M, its board of trustees, President Ammons, and his staff for their fine work. We come now to January of 2009. The task force disbanded after the final report was issued on June 30th. The Audit and Compliance Committee was charged with hearing a follow-up report 6 months afterwards. Since that time, and President Ammons will fill in the blank, several events have occurred. Now, I am here to answer any questions that you have about how we got to this particular point, the task force, but it follows that it was a turning point because the Board of Governors was able to establish through the hard work of many people that we were accountable, and we were able to stand with FAMU in answering those questions about those items that we had the opportunity to review.
Okay, any questions of Terry at this time? If not, President Ammons, thank you for coming, and thank you for everything that you've done today to make this possible.
To Chairman Tripp, members of the Audit Committee, to Chairwoman McDevitt, and other members of the Board of Governors who are here, Chancellor Rosenberg and Chairman Jennings of the FAMU Board of Trustees. I'm pleased to report that Florida A&M University has corrected all of the weaknesses that led to the creation of the Board of Governors Task Force in 2007. I also want to make a correction for the record. There were 6 recommendations that came from the task force instead of 7 as reflected in the documents that were distributed to the board. In the last year, since the Board of Governors Task Force completed its work, we have moved beyond the corrective measures to continue strengthening the financial operations and processes here at the university. We have retained our talented CFO, Ms. Teresa Hardy, and her direct reports, who ensure that our corrective work continues. Again, I want to commend her and the entire team on the professionalism, dedication, and effectiveness in resolving the issues that we faced when we came in 2007. Moreover, we are transferring this knowledge to middle managers to ensure that if attrition occurs, the institutional knowledge remains. This was one of the recommendations of the consultants Accretive Solutions. Following the task force, we began the fiscal year with a comprehensive workshop with the FAMU Board of Trustees on the university's budget and finance operations in June of 2008. This workshop included a comprehensive review of the corrective action plan as recommended by the Board of Governors Task Force in its report. The university is grateful to the work of the task force and its consultant, Accretive Solutions, because that work was recognized by the Commission on Colleges of Psychs when they reviewed the report. Moreover, that report, coupled with the staff's work, as confirmed by the state auditor in November of 2007 with an unqualified opinion, influenced the site's review of the university's probation. And these collective efforts proved persuasive and led to sites lifting our probation in June of 2008. Now for a review of the 6 corrective actions from the task force report, and I'll take each one of them separately. Number 1, salary payment cancellations. The current status: the Division of Audit and Compliance conducted a review of all salary warrant cancellations for the fiscal year 2007-2008 and determined that the controls and procedures related to the salary warrant cancellations for payroll process are indeed adequate. Number 2, competitive procurement of contractual services. The current status: again, the Division of Audit and Compliance conducted a review of contracts and determined that the university has adequate purchasing controls and is in compliance with the Board of Governors purchasing rules and regulations. Further, the division determined that the process for awarding contracts ensures contractual goods and services are procured competitively. Number 3, vehicle records. The current status is that presently vehicle usage logs for university vehicles are being maintained. Additionally, the department heads ensure that completed usage logs are reviewed and signed appropriately. Further, the Division of Audit and Compliance will continue to review the logs to determine compliance with these procedures. 4, communication expenses. Presently, the long-distance telephone logs documenting the purpose of calls are being maintained in accordance with university procedures. In addition, the university revised its cell phone usage procedures in order to comply with the requirements of the Internal Revenue Code and the U.S. Treasury regulations. The changes will enable the university to report the value of cell phone services in the income reported for the employees with assigned cell phones. Further, cellular service request forms have been completed by the employees assigned cell phones, and the forms reflect the justification for the assigned cell phones and approval by the appropriate department heads. And number 5, the schedule of expenditures of federal awards, or SEFA. The Board of Governors Task Force consultants recommended that the university's Board of Trustees review the schedule of expenditures of federal awards following our upgrade to PeopleSoft 9.0 and the implementation of the PeopleSoft billing module. Presently, the university has developed policies and procedures to enhance the accuracy of contracts and grants reporting, as well as procedures to prepare the SEFA report accurately. The upgraded PeopleSoft 9.0 will enable the ability to reconcile actual expenditures to the general ledger as needed. Additionally, the Division of Audit and Compliance will conduct periodic reviews of the schedule of expenditures. And last, number 6, information technology and our security controls. The university is committed to improving information technology security controls and has completed the corrective actions as of December 2008, and they include the following: development of procedures and processes to effectively maintain and monitor PeopleSoft financial system access, identification and removal of privileges of terminated employees, restricted access to ensure proper segregation of duties, updated security documentation to reflect changes to PeopleSoft roles and permission lists. And then we have also implemented logging and review of security changes to the PeopleSoft financial system roles. So the implementation of these changes will provide effective access controls and ensure integrity of financial and administrative data. The Division of Audit and Compliance reviewed and confirmed the improvements related to information technology security controls. And then finally, the university has completed the operational and the financial audits. We are proud to report in the operational audit that we were able to reduce the 35 findings to 7. And many of those 7 findings involve matters that have been addressed by the corrective actions that I just discussed. The university also had its exit conference with the State Auditor's Office regarding the financial audit, and we are awaiting the issuance of its opinion, which I understand will be Friday morning of this week. So, Mr. Chairman, that concludes my report, and I'm happy to address any questions that you may have.
Anybody have any questions, any member? Any questions? Comments? Well done.
Yep.
Kudos.
And we want to thank you very much for the leadership that you've brought to this, President Ammons.
Thank you.
It always starts at the top and ends at the top. So,
Well, we got a great team.
We know that. We thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right, the next item is discussion of our Audit and Compliance Committee charter. Derry, and let me just give you a little bit of a background on this. As we stand today as a committee, we've been operating without a charter, and that's not a good thing. And so I asked Derry that he take on this effort and that we get a preliminary recommended charter to us at this meeting so that this board can, this committee can consider this charter and then recommend it for the first reading tomorrow. Is that what we do, Derry?
Yes, sir, it'll be in March. We will recommend the document that will be presented to the full board in March.
In March, for final approval.
Yes, sir.
There's been a lot of work that's taken place over the last several months, and I'll leave all the good talk to Derry. I would like to thank some people that I know personally that have spent a lot of time bringing this to fruition. One is Derry Harper, Lori Clark, our General Counsel Vicki Shirley, Jolynn Merkel, who is the Audit Chair at the University of Florida, Jamie Keith, who's the General Counsel of the University of Florida, all of the chairs of the audit committees from the various universities who I had the opportunity to talk with in this process, the state universities' general counsels, and the state university's audit council. All of the auditors of each of the universities have had input into this, and then finally all of the universities' general counsels. So have I missed anybody?
No, sir, I think you covered the field pretty well.
Okay.
You might want to mention that the person to your right, that's Chancellor Rosenberg
Oh.
and Chair McDevitt, because again, Chancellor Rosenberg is part of the team that reviewed the document, but Chair McDevitt for her leadership, as always, in making sure that we got it done.
You accept that?
All I did was
Okay, Terry, let's go forward with it. It's very important. And the one thing that I'm glad is we had scheduled a lot of time for this meeting because I was told Terry we were going to come out of this meeting with an agreed upon charter one way or the other. Fortunately, through a lot of hard work, I think they have brought a charter to us that everybody in the system is comfortable with, so that if we're similarly comfortable with it, we can move forward. Derry?
As Governor Tripp has noted, our charge after the November 5th Audit and Compliance Committee meeting was to gain input from various constituencies within the state university system, which we did so, including from the University Boards of Trustees Audit Committee chairs, the State University Audit Council, and the General Counsel. I want to point the members of the committee and those members here, your supplemental materials, which I think on the front has the task force and FAMU. In the back is a version of the Audit and Compliance Committee charter, which we, on behalf of the Board of Governors staff and Chancellor Rosenberg, submit to the committee as our final draft for approval. I'll give you just a moment to find it.
Jerry, is it possible to move closer to the microphone?
Thank you.
Try
My
it, Derry.
voice would
See
carry.
if she can hear you now.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, thank you so much.
Very
My
well.
apologies.
All right, if everyone has that, I'm going to go through this, and we talked in general and also in specifics at the November 5th meeting, so I'm not going to spend a tremendous amount of time going through the format, but I do want to highlight some of the specific items which are a little bit different, but also what I would submit to you is an improvement on the document that we looked at that day, and one where we feel sets a foundation, as a charter should, for this committee being the primary responsibility, or having the primary responsibility on the Board of Governors to demonstrating accountability. And that really is what is now the major change in the introduction section. And it reads, without going into detail again, that the Audit Committee has as its responsibility to demonstrate the Board's commitment to accountability. The Board is always committed to accountability, but this committee will be the bastion of that accountability banner. In the organization section, if we can move forward, in that section there you will also note a few line changes to the language in the second paragraph, specifically ones that illustrate that the charter indicates and sets forth clearly what its authority, responsibility, and expectations are for the Office of Inspector General and Director of Compliance. In the organization section, and I know Governor Temple may be joining us by phone or will not be able to join us, in that one footnote where we define financial expert, that was one suggestion at the November 5th meeting that everyone agreed to. We incorporated a definition which is broad enough, but at the same time substantive enough to meet both professional standards and best practices as charters go. Just one moment, sir. In the organization section, again, just to repeat, because I have...
A little closer,
Okay.
Derry, so they can
In the
hear you.
organization section, in the second full paragraph, again, the language there is repetitious somewhat, but again, it emphasizes that the Audit and Compliance Committee is the central point for demonstrating the Board's commitment to accountability, financial integrity, and efficiency in the operations of the state university system. Now, if we'll move to page 2, that first paragraph is new. It is based upon those discussions with the individuals and groups that we talked about, and it recognizes that the audit committees of the respective boards of trustees for the state universities and their internal audit executives serve as the central point for demonstrating that particular institution's boards of trustees' commitment to accountability, financial integrity, etc. That second paragraph on page 2 is also new. The board's Audit and Compliance Committee should and has its responsibility for the entire state university system to ensure that processes are in place to meet the SUS's responsibility for accountability, integrity, and efficiency. Those are new paragraphs as compared to the version that you looked at in November. Further down on that page, the paragraph that begins the Inspector General, we have a slight change in the language, but it does not change the meaning. The Inspector General will provide leadership and coordination of audit and compliance functions for the Board of Governors and be generally responsible for promoting activities that ensure accountability throughout the state university system as required by law. In that next paragraph, we have changed both the format based on some, I thought, very good suggestions from various individuals and groups, and in a bullet point form, set forth the responsibilities of the Board Audit and Compliance Committee to act as a buffer, or in this case specifically, to act in a functional sense to, be committed in a functional sense to overseeing the activities of the Inspector General. I don't want to go into a lot more detail about it, but at our November meeting, I emphasized that a dual reporting relationship, which this charter adopts, is best practice right now by most professional standards and experts. This was our attempt to set forth in a fairly straightforward manner what those functional areas are and to establish objectivity and independence in that way. And of course, there's a definition for reporting administratively, as it should, to the Chancellor. A very brief comment on page 3 regarding authority. It is obvious, but it has to be stated in any fundamental document, and that's what the charter is, that the authority of the Audits and Compliance Committee and whatever that authority is flows directly to those duties and responsibilities delegated by the board to the committee. And then in section 3, duties and responsibilities, again, we've changed the format a little bit and in bullet point form talk specifically about what some of those duties and responsibilities for the Board of Governors office and for the Inspector General are at the bottom of page 3. If you'll turn to page 4, subsection B, State University System. Again, this is a little different format, but it presents the Audit and Compliance Committee's duties relative to the state university system. And I want to just make a note here. Chair Tripp mentioned both Vicki Shirley and Chris Kinsley, who during my absence stepped in and did a lot of work both with the groups and individuals that we talked about and made sure that we had a document that would meet legal compliance. And in this particular instance, the bullet points that you see here are part and parcel of the duties and responsibilities that this committee and the Board of Governors has to the state university system as a whole based upon clear compliance with the Constitution. It is not all-inclusive. It can be amended and changed at an appropriate time, but we think we've captured those items which at this point in time it is clear we have consensus on should be there. But if I were going to ask you to look at one section more than any other before you approve this, it would be those particular bullet points to make sure that they capture the duties relative to the state university system that this committee and the Board of Governors has.
So why don't you go through those, Derry, right now?
I will.
And we'll take any questions you have of Derry as he's going through them. Just feel free to ask those.
Okay. They are as follows. The Audit and Compliance Committee's duties relative to the state university system include acting as a liaison with the Audit Committee of University Boards of Trustees, receiving and reviewing university audit reports, identifying
Let me
trends.
comment there.
Yes,
We expect that when the reports are finalized, they will be given to us. And that was made clear in all your discussions with the universities and the general councils, correct?
Yes, sir.
It's not a question about we have to ask for them. They will send those to us once they're completed.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
There is also a specific reference in the duties and responsibilities regulation that will be reviewed by the trustee committee and the powers and duties. There is a specific reference to internal audit reports being sent to the board once they're finalized. Next is identifying trends, initiating inquiries if the committee has reasonable cause to believe that a university is not providing for appropriate response to significant audit findings, directing the Inspector General to conduct an inquiry or investigation if the committee has reasonable cause to believe a university board of trustees is unwilling or unable to provide for objective investigation of credible allegations of fraud or other substantial financial impropriety. And the final bullet, working collaboratively with the universities to develop resources that will support sound audit and financial compliance practices. And just one again, a digression. In my brief overview of the task force, I left out one very important fact. In March of 2007, with the help of Chair Roberts, Chancellor Rosenberg, Chair McDevitt, and other people, I wasn't here, we were able to get a $1 million appropriation to fund our assistance to FAMU in dealing with that crisis. That probably wouldn't be the case today. We're going to have to work harder to be creative, work more efficiently and cooperatively if we have a matter that would require this committee to ask me or the Board of Governors to intervene. It's just the fact of the matter that we don't have the resources now that we did before and that we're in the middle of a budget crisis. Hopefully that turning point will be very positive.
Mr. Chairman.
Yes.
Questions?
Can I ask a clarification, please?
Yes, ma'am.
On one of these system requirements, I think actually they're very good, but I want to clarify whether or not, let me find it, where we say the university system, it's bullet point 2, receiving and reviewing university audit reports. Are you talking about both internal and Auditor General reports?
We're talking about, and that might be a good change, internal audit reports.
Okay.
Because we will
Because
receive,
we automatically get the Auditor General ones, so you're saying here that we will begin to receive their internal audit reports. Okay, very good.
The main point to understand is after they've completed them, after they've had their comments, and it's a final report. We're not expecting that we'll be part of that process. And that was a big bone of contention issue that was out there. And we want to make sure everybody understands that. We're not going to have any inside role in those, but when they're completed, then they would be sent to us. And the main thing that we would be looking at, Derry would be looking at, and this committee would be looking at, are there any things that are happening system-wide that we may recognize, et cetera, that we need to start addressing system-wide? Derry?
I'm sorry, sir, what was the question again?
There wasn't a question.
There wasn't.
He's
A
just
comment. You can
elaborating.
I did want to respond. If you'll look at the final bullet, Chair McDevitt, provide guidance on how to establish and maintain strong working relationships with external auditors. That's my role on behalf of the Board of Governors as your Chief Audit Executive. But there is an opportunity with cooperation, collaboration from the other state university Chief Audit Executives to continue to improve our relationship and act as a liaison with the Auditor General's office. And that is one way that we might be able to bring about some effective communication that might assist in improving and maintaining and enhancing that relationship. I guess that was somewhat redundant. But it is a key relationship and is one that I found over my years of experience you need to maintain and develop over time.
The point that I've made to Derry is that the universities are first and foremost responsible for watching the financial aspects of the university in this state. But we also then play a role on top of that. And the end goal is to make sure that the people of the state are satisfied that everybody in the university system is accountable and is up to the task and knows what they're doing. And that's what we tried to get here. Terry?
Any other questions?
Any questions? Anything you'd like to see changed in the document? Anybody on the phone have any questions?
Do they have anything? Do they support it?
Yeah, Derry, I think most of the university audit representatives supported this final draft.
Yes, sir.
Is that correct?
We worked on that, and we did gain consensus from them. I was hoping that Jamie Keith, General Counsel for the University of Florida, would be able to join us by phone.
Jerry, excuse me, I'm here. I didn't speak up before because the request was for questions, but if the chairman is open to a comment, I would love to be heard.
Yes, go
Are you
ahead.
going to change
Okay,
something?
hello everyone, and thank you for letting me join you by phone. I also wanted to bring best wishes from Joanne Merkel, the chair of our audit committee, who very much appreciates the hard and collaborative work that the chairman and Derry and Vicki Shirley have undertaken in reaching this draft. I think that it really is something that reflects good governance and strong accountability both for the system and for the individual universities. And I just wanted to express the University of Florida's sincere appreciation to the hard work and openness that the Board of Governors, particularly through the chairman and Derry, have exhibited in helping us to reach this draft. We really do feel very positive about it.
Well, thank you, and I know you worked hard, and it always, I think, is good that you build some relationships. Actually, the first time I met Joe Lynn, I was sitting about where President Ammons is now sitting, and the University of Miami was going to play the University of Florida, so I made her a bet that if Miami beat Florida, she had to pay me $10, but if Florida beat Miami, I only had to give her $5. Of course, I lost my $5, but that started a good relationship, and through that, I was particularly pleased because she is an extremely knowledgeable individual, hardworking, and has all the background to help us on this. So I think the personal relationships and our desire to make sure that we're working hand in hand with the boards of trustees and their audit committees, they are the front line and always will be. So I think this charter reflects that, but it also reflects, if we ever have to answer to any legislative audit committee, the fact that we take our role seriously and that we are playing a role according to the law, to the statutes and the Constitution that gives us that authority. Any further comments? Governor Edwards.
Mr. Chair, I would first comment that I'm glad that you are a better businessman and governor than you are gambler. You should have known better than to bet against the Gators or any SUS team when they play Miami. With that said, I frankly am amazed that we are where we are with this document. I don't see any reason to delay it any further. It appears that there is consensus. It's a great document, and I would move that we approve it and send it to the board.
All right, there's been a motion. Second. Any further comments? All in favor say, I'm sorry.
Only one, and it's a minor technical change, and AJ's not going to make it, so I will.
I'm sorry, Governor Perez, I cannot hear you.
I'm sorry, Derry. Just a minor technical change. Put my hands back on. I thought we'd moved beyond. AJ didn't make it, so I will. On page 1, when we talk about the organization, unless that's statutory language, I think it's the chair of the Florida Student Association, not the Florida Student Council.
Yeah.
I mean, minor change. I was just going to hand it to staff, but if we're going to approve it, I want to get it on the record.
But is it chair of the Florida
Student Association.
Student Association? Okay. So noted. We'll make that change. Anything else? So there was a second to the motion?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman.
Any further comments? All in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? All right, now the process is, help me a little bit because I'm new at this. This will be recommended to the board tomorrow.
No, sir, it will be an action item on the board's agenda at its March meeting.
At its March
for
meeting.
ratification and adoption by the full Board of Governors.
Okay. So we will take it up at the March meeting for full action. We will give a report to the board tomorrow that we have accepted this. Okay. Is there anyone else? I hear somebody speaking. No? Okay.
Judy just concurring.
Now, before we go on to item 6, let's just talk a little bit about the next charter that we're going to take up. This is the charter for the committee. We also need a charter for the Office of Inspector General. When we started doing this, we had both charters side by side. We came to the conclusion that it was going to be a lot easier for us to get agreement on the committee's charter first and then move to the charter for the Inspector General's office. So Derry and Vicki and the other people with all of the Inspector General's input, et cetera, again, will work on a second charter, which will be a charter for his office. We will bring that to the March meeting, and hopefully we will have full agreement with everybody on that charter like we had today. We will then have the committee address that charter, and if we approve it, then we will take that charter to the June meeting for the board approval. So you'll see something else coming out. So if you see it, it's not, gee, I thought we did that. It's more specific just to his office and not to this committee per se. Is that a good explanation?
That is accurate, sir. Yes, it is.
Okay, let's go to item 6 then.
We were asked to develop the Audit and Compliance Committee work plan. And again, if you'll look in your materials sent to you originally, not in the supplemental materials, behind that tab, there is the Audit and Compliance Committee work plan. It is a little bit different format than the document we presented to you in November, reflecting this committee's format being consistent with that of the other committees of the Board of Governors. It includes, of course, both goals and deliverables as set forth in the first section, and then under each of the major sections, some specific actions or deliverables to be taken on by this particular committee and by staff. Governor Tripp, at least in the instances where you see in that column for lead person, is reflected in Roman numeral 1. But one of the items I'd ask the committee to do today is see if we can gain, either by volunteers or by assignment, members of the committee to act as lead on those activities. As I have explained to you previously, while this is the document that will guide the committee's work, behind that is the summary work plan, which will be a document internally used by my office, and then a more detailed work plan as we look at each activity and try to come up with a project management approach so that we can meet those particular goals and deliverables within the time frame set forth. So this is going to be subject to change. It will be a document that will evolve, but we have tried to capture in the goals and deliverables all those items which we have on our plate right now, and we'll of course revise it as necessary. So Chair Tripp, I'd ask you to, at least in those instances where we have assigned individuals as the lead or responsible person, to either get their consensus that they will do so or agreement, or assign someone else, and in particular ask the committee to again look at the goals and deliverables and see if you have any particular activities you want us to add to this particular list. Of course, some we will delete because, of course, we are meeting them as we go.
All right, let's go ahead and start with it. Start 1A, 1B. And
all right. Under audit, under the Audit and Compliance Committee and OIGC charters, we've already talked about the current charters. and the review of the final charters for recommendation to the full board. The lead person on all of those items under Roman numeral 1 is Governor Tripp. If you'll flip over on the back page, SUS Compliance Program Plan. I have suggested on several occasions that in this particular instance, we form a work group and have a commitment from 3 individuals at the universities to help me and assist me in developing a compliance plan. But in this particular instance, the lead person responsible for that, we said would be Governor Temple for Roman numeral 2A, and Governors Temple and Tripp for Roman numeral 2B. Under OIGC policies and procedures.
And so we need somebody, Mikey from the committee, would you ask Governor Temple if he would agree to serve as the lead person on that item?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Roman numeral 3 is the OIGC policies and procedures, which we'll be working on, as you can tell, for the next several months. And on that, and this was Governor Tripp, your and my suggestion, we were going to ask Governor Stavros to be the lead person. And I wanted to elaborate a little on that. When we say that you're the lead person and responsible, of course, you will be more engaged than other members of the committee, and we will ask you, of course, to be available to staff as we work through whatever documents, issues that may come up.
So again, Mikey, if you could ask Governor Stavros, and Derry, you need to explain to each of them exactly what it is, and then if they don't want to serve, if you could let me know, and we'll seek somebody else. Go ahead on the next one.
All right, under Roman numeral 4, Audit and Compliance Committee Work Plan, Governor Tripp, you are the lead on that, and we will continue, as I said, to develop this document and the supporting documents necessary to maintain a good project management of those items that are activities and deliverables. Roman numeral 5, monitoring university audit and compliance activities. And in this instance, Governor Edwards, we would ask you to consider being the lead person. Part of the discussion with the work group on compliance will be how to develop a way to have an effective and efficient communication between the Office of Inspector General at the board and the other universities. That will take some time, and you can see that we've talked about it, but we're considering developing that plan in the next few months. So those dates may change. May I proceed? The Board of Governors Office Audit Work Plan. I am responsible by statute and now when the charter passes to develop an audit plan for the Board of Governors Office. And in this particular instance, that will include engaging in a systematic risk assessment based on standards. And we had asked, at least in Roman numeral 6A, that Governor Zachariah be the lead on receiving those reports and assisting in any way that we might need in developing that plan. And Governor Tripp will be, of course, the lead in getting that plan approved by this committee once it's completed.
Could you do that, Zach? He likes to come down to Fort Lauderdale for restaurants. Thank you.
On the OIGC annual report, by statute, the Office of Inspector General is required to issue an annual report by September 30th, and Governor Tripp has agreed to continue to be the lead person on that particular activity. Response to Auditor General operational audit and 6-month follow-up. We have suggested as the lead person on that Governor Martin for Roman numeral 8A and 8B, which is a review of the 6-month follow-up, Governor Martin and Governor Tripp. Governor Martin is not here, but again, I think asking him if he would be willing to do so. The 6-month follow-up is coming up quickly, and we've already begun discussions with management about a report out on those corrective actions put in place to deal with our operational audit findings. Roman numeral 9, the review of the Audit and Compliance Committee charter. Again, Governor Tripp will be the lead person. As our draft charter indicates, next year we will look at the charter to determine if any changes in the charter document or the duties and responsibilities set forth therein, or if the Board of Governors as a whole decides that the duties and responsibility of the audit committee should be changed. And again, Governor Tripp is the lead person on that. And of course, Roman numeral 10, the FAMU Task Force Project, Governor Tripp was the lead person on that. And as of today, that is done. Sir, I'm available to answer any questions, but I would add, just as an editorial comment, but also my professional judgment, the charter that we agreed upon today is an important document. Being able to demonstrate, again, accountability by having work plans that we can adhere to and show that we've reached our goals and deliverables are critical. So we expect to be extremely busy, and with your help and support, we will be able to meet those goals and deliverables and complete those activities.
Okay, thank you. Concluding remarks, needless to say, in the climate we're in today, each of these committees are important, but nothing will rise to the importance of what an audit committee is if there's a malfunction somewhere. And so what we need to do is make sure that we're diligent, that we understand what we're doing, and that we work hand in hand with each of the universities' boards of trustees and their committee chairs. And one of the things we'll try to do is on an annual basis pull together a workshop, a presentation that will enhance all of the audit activities of the university system. And I think with this charter, we're taking that very first step, and look forward to us all working together with Derry to make sure that we get it accomplished. What's your committee to adopt? Oh, yes. Chancellor said we need the committee to adopt the board plan, work plan.
So moved, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, is there a second?
Second.
Any comments?
Only to give the chairman the authority to replace these lead personnel in the event others don't accept their requested positions.
Okay, thank you. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. Anything further before we...
I just would like to thank you all for working on both the charter and the work plan, and thank those on the phone, and Vicki Shirley for their dedication in getting this done for this meeting. And I just want to make one comment about this work plan and all of the work plans that have been adopted by the committees. I think this is a big step forward for the board, because all of this is going to serve as a guideline going forward, because these will just be updated as time passes and change, and we're not going to have to start over at square one every year. So I appreciate the time that everyone put into doing these, although they thought I was crazy when I wanted them to do it. But I think in the long term, you're going to be very happy you did them, and it's helpful to all of you that are affected by our work, and for all of us to have these in front of us as a kind of a calendar or a master schedule. So thank you.
Okay, thank you. Motion to adjourn. Stand adjourned.
Listen, folks, I want to remind you that this evening we're having a reception starting at 5:30 for Chancellor Rosenberg's departure, and so I encourage everybody to come and bring others who have worked with him and know him. It will be at the Mary Brogan Museum, which is at 350 South Duval, corner of South Duval and Pensacola. There's a parking lot on the left as you go through the intersection. And is that parking lot on Pensacola? On Duval. So we'll see you all there. I want you to know that tomorrow morning we are scheduled to start at 8:30. It is my goal to get through our committees and our board meeting and be finished by 2:30. So please be here in advance of 8:30 so that we can start on time. The airplane choices in and out of here are very bad, and I personally have got something I have to do tomorrow night, and I don't have I have only one choice at 4:10, so let's get started on time. And would you all call the chairs of the first meetings?
Dr.
Zachariah, okay. And everybody else that's on the committee, make sure they know that we're going to start right on time, and anybody else that knows of interested people, make sure they know we're going to get started on time. Thank you all very much.